Welcome to No Excuses. My name is Mary Fran, and today we're doing something that I am so excited to get back to, and that is book reviews. I am actually going to be joining an open collab. It is hosted by Life with Patty 9531 and My Mountain Home and Kitchen. I learned about this open collab through Living My Best Life 9697. And I'm just like, I've known about it for a while, and I'm like, I want to do it. And so I'm going to get back into my book reviews with an open collab, and I might be doing it every week. I don't know. I like to do it, so we shall see. So today we're going to talk about the books that I read last week. Now, I actually have a handful of books. I actually read 7 books. Remember, I am laid off. I spend my mornings on the computer and looking for jobs. I spend my afternoons working in the yard, running, doing that stuff. But there is plenty of time for me to read. And on the evenings and weekends, when my husband's watching something I don't like on TV, I read. All good. So I do read a lot, and I have a lot more time than normal to read. And I also read some what I call fluff, which is just quick reading. I read fast. This is not a competition. So you read. If you can get one book done a month, that's awesome. But let's talk about what I read. So we're going to start with the nonfiction. I read 3 nonfiction books. First book I read was The Spell of the Barkley. And I actually talked about the Barkley marathons a couple videos ago when I talked about how I was learning to run and starting to run again. The Barkley marathons are amazing. It is 5 loops through the mountains, not on trails, unaided. Each one is around 25 to 30 miles. 60 hours to do it. There is a documentary out that says this is the race that eats its young, because it is that difficult. They come out of there talking about the hallucinations. They come out of there, just covered in scratches. It's insane. It is the most insane thing, but it is amazing to see what these people are pushing themselves through and what their bodies can do. And I actually I'll talk about it, how there have only been, this race has been around since 1986. There have only been 20 people that have finished it ever. And I talked about this the other week, that in 2024, for the first time ever, a female finished it. So exciting stuff. And, it's The Spell of the Barkley was a good book because it actually talks about what the Barkley entails. What does happen? It talks about the training involved. It talks about the crewing, the work up to it, the whole quirkiness of the Barkley marathons. It talks about how there's only 40 participants allowed each year because it is capped at that because of, the environmental issues. It talks about the grueling mental aspect of this race and what it takes and what happens when you actually do succeed. And it just really puts this race into perspective. I would still highly recommend checking out the documentary. They go hand in hand. It really is an amazing book. If you have never heard or learned about the Barkley marathons, do one of those because they are absolutely amazing. So once I actually read The Spell of the Barkley, well, then I saw that there was a book called Lazarus Lake. And let me tell you that Laz Lake is the mastermind behind the Barkley marathons. Laz is not his real name, but he actually became an ultramarathoner back when ultramarathon running was just not a huge thing and not as mainstream. And he really quickly learned that, yes, he liked to run, but he wasn't out there looking to run to be the fastest or run to do this. He was out there running to learn to push himself to the limit, because in his view, when you push yourself to the limits, that is where greatness occurs. When you push yourself past those limits, I should say, is where greatness occurs. And it's like a psychological test, pushing yourself to the limit and seeing where your body takes you, seeing where your mind takes you. And he designed a bunch of very difficult races, actually. He does the Ultra Backyard. He's the one that came up with the Ultra Backyard, which is a little bit over 4-mile loop through trail. And you basically have an hour to do it. You do it, And if you don't finish it in the hour, you are out. And then everybody that finished and wants to go on, they do another loop and they have another hour. And at the end of that hour, they start another loop. And it really is running a loop until there's only one person left. Plain and simple. Grueling. These people are running for, a lot of hours. We're talking hundreds of miles. It's crazy. Once again, pushes your mind to the limit. It is, yes, a physical challenge, but it is a mental challenge. And the Barkley is the same way. What makes the Barkley fun is the fact that, it's very secretive how you even apply. When you do apply, if you are one of the lucky, you are sent a condolence letter. I'd like to send my condolences that you have been chosen. I've read one or two of the condolence letters. They're not really well published out there, but I have read one or two of them, and they just make you laugh. They talk, when a runner quits or fails to make a loop, make one of the rounds in the time frame, they are greeted with taps on the bugle. The race starts somewhere in a 12-hour window. Race runners do not know. They just know it might be at 12 o'clock midnight and it might be 12 o'clock noon the next day. They have an hour notice before it starts. He blows a conch shell and they line up at the gate to start. And he starts the race, and he has started the race with lighting a cigarette. I'm telling you. Guy is quirky, and the randomness just goes on. It's just funny. But as that funniness is occurring, you're seeing people pushing themselves past limits that you would never want to see. And this book, so anyway, this book talks about a lot of those quirks, where they come from, and it talks about his philosophy about how he just likes to see people push themselves to that limit, and he likes to see what happens to people when they push themselves past that limit. Fascinating book, fascinating man. There is actually another book about Laz coming out in, I think, September. I've already pre-ordered it. This book is good also, link in the description. While I was reading one of those two books, the author actually touched on the book Touching the Void. Now, there is a movie out, and I have watched the movie, but I was like, I've never read the book. Let's do it. So I read the book, and this is the story about a mountain climber that was going to a peak that at that point had never been reached that they knew of. And he and a buddy set out to do it, and they went up. Now, the first half of the book is just talking about, and we went over this and the crest and the this and the that. And it was very technical, and it was very dry, very dry. They did reach the crest, and as they were coming back down, that's when the excitement happened. And call me sick and twisted, because this is when the excitement happened, because the dude fell and broke his leg. And when his buddy that was hiking with him came, and he looked at him, and they were like, dude, we're not in a good spot. Most people that get hurt at this elevation, they're pretty much left for dead. And it was in their eyes. They could see it. They knew it. And so the other guy was just kind of doing stuff and just getting himself prepared, because he knew he was probably going to have to leave his buddy. And in that time frame, the guy with the broken leg actually somehow managed to get himself up, and he started to hobble to a spot that he thought he would have a better chance of going. And he actually worked out a pattern in which he was able to somehow push himself past the pain and walk. And when his buddy saw it, his buddy was like, dude, we might have a chance. So they went to a cliff. They went to one of the cliff faces, and they designed a system where he would lower him down. And they started lowering the injured guy down the side of a mountain. Undescribable pain for this guy, because every time, he's got his lower leg was jammed up into his kneecap. I mean, it's not a pretty injury. And they get down to a point, and he starts lowering him, and all of a sudden, he goes over a wall, and he is dangling, and he can't get back up. He's dangling. And the guy on the top is waiting, hoping that he can get purchase, hoping that he can, hand over hand climb or do something to save himself. But the guy on the top was starting to slip. He's exhausted. He's tired. His hands are frostbitten. He's starting to slip. He had no choice. Took out his knife and he had to cut the rope. It was either they both fall over the cliff or he cuts the rope and saves himself. And he cut the rope to save himself. I mean, that alone is a story in itself, because what is going through your mind at that point? But the guy that was on the end of the rope, the one that was cut free, somehow managed to land on a ledge and survive the fall. Still had a little bit of gear with him, and he, laid there in, indescribable pain. And he devised his own system to start lowering himself down. He's like, I can lay on this ledge and I can die, or I can at least try. I can fight and struggle to the very last breath I have. And he started to struggle, and he got out of that crevice, and he somehow crawled over an ice floe field and like 6 or 7 miles back to camp. It blows your mind when he made it, and he did it without water. He did it pretty much without water. He was super dehydrated. He got back to camp literally hours before they were going to break camp and leave, because it was a done deal. The guy that had actually cut the rope and the guy that was sitting back at camp waiting for them had actually knew they couldn't hike out with all this stuff, all the dead hiker stuff. So they had actually already burned his clothes. They had already eaten his food stores and everything. They were ready to pack up and leave, and he got there right before them. And they managed to get him out of the wilderness and to a hospital where this guy's life was saved. He was pretty much delirious and unable to do anything other than lay in a comatose state during this trip. Amazing. The guy actually was told he would probably never walk. He does walk, and he has climbed again. Amazing story of resilience and what you can push your body and mind to do when most people would give up. So those are my 3 nonfictions, 3 good ones. I also read The Little Wartime Library. This is a book about the underground system, and during World War II in London, there was an unfinished tube station. And in that station, they actually had people that were pretty much living down there. They were actually, had places to stay because of the bombings. There were people were going to the underground stations, and since this was unfinished, it kind of became an underground city. And I have read about this in previous books, and I have actually researched that it is true. There were some notable people that were born in these, like I think Jerry Springer is one that was born in one of these underground stations during the war. But this is about a library that was underground, run by a woman, and she was just facing a lot of flack from various places. And just a really good feel-good book, because it's just, it's about resilience in a rough time. It's about perseverance. It's about just being awesome. Good book. There was love interest, there was hate interest, there was children, there was, she came up against people that did not want her to have this library, didn't think she was doing it the right way, because she was doing it in a way that reached the masses. And at that time, her boss was believing that no, books are for the elite, and he didn't like her opening the library to everybody. But yet, while doing it, she was discovering that books are life-giving in times of struggle. If you turn to a book, it's either going to help you learn, help you grow, help you escape. It's going to be doing a lot of things, which is probably why I read 7, because, I am still unemployed. So, I need an escape at some points. But good book. The next 4 books were what I call fluff reading. Lighthearted romance. They usually end happy. Everything is fine. First one was The Dressmaker's Secret, Earl. This is about a gal who is a lady who is running from her family due to circumstances. And she wants to be a dressmaker, and she's always had a dream of being a dressmaker. So she goes and becomes a dressmaker. And in doing so, she keeps getting put in front of this Earl and his sister. She becomes really good friends with the sister, and just things happen. It's a fluff, and I just already said it was a romance, so you know probably where it's going to go, but you're not going to know how it's going to go and who is going to attack and who is going to win and lose and draw. So I'm not going to tell you more. It was a really good book, a really feel-good book. I would recommend it. It was, if you like the Earls and if you like that era of history, it's a good one. The next one I read was The Secret Identity of the Lord's Aid. And it was also a good book. It was about a kind of the same thing. It was about somebody who was in the upper echelon of society and had fallen due to circumstances beyond her control, just like the other one. And she was a writer and was working secretly as a writer, and how she somehow became friendly with the Lord, who needed her assistance, and it was a big secret and all of that stuff. And of course, I already said it was a romance again, so things are going to happen. Both of those had a little bit of smut in them, not too bad. It was actually more of a storyline that was good, and it wasn't all smut and bad. It was just a good romantic read. I got both of those through the free Booksy. They were free on Kindle, so free books. The last two books I'm almost too embarrassed to talk about. They are 100% smut. They were sex from page 1 to page end, and I'll put them both up here. They were free on free Booksy, easy reads, a couple minutes of my time, and that was all it was. If you like smut, they were both good books. These are the 7 books I read in the week, and let me know if you have read any. And I'm really curious about the Barkley. Do you know what the Barkley is? And have you ever watched any of the information about the Barkley? And if you haven't, read the books. Descriptions are in the link below. No excuses.